Hey guys, Joe here with the Good Old Gamer, and tonight I'm here with Chris, and we've got a couple topics we wanted to talk about. But first, we want to start off with something that's really kind of coming out of Computex with Intel's, let's call it, underwhelming display of products and the confusion that has set in, which Chris just talked about in his most recent video. And we wanted to talk about a couple of things specifically. I know I wanted to talk about one thing, and that is that for a long time we have been sitting in the gaming market looking at nothing but Intel processors because unfortunately AMD has not been able to compete. Now you can blame that on Intel sabotaging them, but the bottom line is consumers have only had one real option if they wanted to put a decent to high-end gaming CPU in their desk or what have you, and it's been Intel. But we're now getting to a point with AMD releasing their Ryzen processors, which have been fine-tuned over the last few months, and they are now performing just as well, almost just as well as most Intel products out there. And we have their upcoming AMD Threadripper product, which is about to hit the market in the next month or two. And there's a lot of amazing stuff coming with the Threadrippers having up to 16 cores and 32 threads, as well as now we have Intel trying to come back at AMD with a host of new X series products on their new X299 platform, which are still seemingly outrageously priced considering what we know AMD's coming with. And if you consider the rumor that Chris talked about in the previous video where the new Threadripper, the 16 core 32 thread Threadripper, is going to be roughly $849, which is going to be almost over $1,000 cheaper than the new 18 core 36 thread processor that Intel is now touting that doesn't technically exist, which is interesting. So I wanted to talk about this, and I apologize if I'm rambling, but the reason I wanted to talk about it is because we've wanted this competition in the market for a long time. We're starting to see Ryzen drop in price. Intel has cut prices on some of their older processors, and we're now at a point where the benefit to the consumers is starting to be seen. This kind of competition can only be good for consumers. The reason we need to talk about it, and the reason you need to talk about it with your friends and anybody in earshot that wants to talk about computing, is because just like Nvidia, Intel has an incredible amount of mind share because they've been so dominant for so long. Anybody who thinks about building a computer, their first thought is get an Intel processor. We are no longer at a stage where that should be the first thought. Now the first thought needs to be, can I go with AMD? Should I go with AMD? Can I go with Intel? Should I go with Intel? But the bottom line is, if you're questioning it, that's what's important. Intel is now in the conversation with AMD as opposed to being the sole participant in that conversation. So we need to get that out. We need to make sure AMD puts as much of a dent into the marketplace as is possible, because with that market share gain, we will continue to see better pricing and better products, better innovation hitting our computers, and that's what's important. We want the best products we can to maximize our dollars, and AMD is giving that to us on a silver platter. So if you get anything from this video, and Chris is going to talk here in a minute too, he's going to add on, but if you get anything to this video from this video, and this is from me, please talk about AMD and what they're doing, because people need to know there is another option besides Intel. And a lot of people literally do not know there is another option besides Intel, and it's mind-boggling, but it's true. So that's what I've got. Chris, you said you wanted to add to that. Go ahead, man.
Well, I mean, the way that you kind of phrased it came off a little weird to me, but honestly, the situation is you should be looking for what's the best processor you can get for whatever budget that you want to set. For most people, it's about $200. That's where the i5s have generally lived, and that's usually where gamers like to, about as much as gamers like to spend on their CPUs. Now, instead of just a 4-core, 4-thread CPU, you can now get a 6-core, 12-thread CPU, which is a massive increase in performance. Now, of course, people will be going, well, the i5 performs faster in games and this and that. My favorite thing is it's like, okay, it's 110 frames per second versus like 102 frames per second. Whoopity freaking do. The minimum frame rate, as long as it's above 60 on any of these processors, it really kind of doesn't matter. The big thing is your minimum frame rates are generally going to be better on your higher core count CPUs overall. If you're running anything in your background, there have been many web, excuse me, there have been many channels out there that have gone ahead and shown that When running background tasks and gaming, even small stuff like Skype or, listening to Spotify or whatever, on an i5 will be detrimental to your gaming experience. Benchmark websites do nothing on the computer but run the game. There's nothing else going on those systems. So it's not indicative of real life performance. So it's kind of tough to figure this out right now because the CPU market hasn't been like this since pretty much the original Athlon came out, when the race to 1 gigahertz came out, where basically Intel and AMD were on par. Because after the Athlon and Athlon XP, where they were still kind of even, the Athlon 64 came out. AMD was the superior processor at that point. Intel was not even an option. Then the Core 2 came out. Then AMD was no longer an option and hasn't been since then. Not really, anyway. The Phenom 2 was pretty good there for a little while for AMD, but that was just a very short window. For the most part, it's pretty much been Intel since the Core 2 series up until right now. So the vast majority of PC gamers were not PC gamers back when the original Athlon Thunderbird CPUs were coming out. They don't remember that AMD hit 1 gigahertz first and Intel followed them. So this is a type of market that most PC gamers, I would say, are not used to, where there's genuine competition and you have to do a crap ton of research to figure out what's the best performance for your dollar. Because there's a lot of factors that reviews, websites, and benchmarks are not going to show you. Like I said, if there's background tasks and such going on. What if you're, doing anything that's not just gaming? A lot of places will talk about it, but you have to seek these things out because these aren't the big graphs that most reviewers are going to show you. They're going to show you basically the scientific method there, inside an enclosed environment, the absolute basics, the best case scenario. But, without actually seeing real world performance in an actual system that people use on a daily basis, So that's just kind of where I'm at. I think it's great. I want them to beat the crap out of each other. I don't want AMD to catch too much wind. I want them to realize that they still need to be innovating. Of course, we know where there's going to be a Zen 2, a Zen 3. So they already kind of have that figured out. But what's coming after that? They need to really be looking at that. And hopefully, it's another nice jump forward. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, right now, there really isn't a whole lot more to say other than AMD has caught a lot of wind recently, and I know you don't want them to catch too much wind, but they're literally offering way more value in their products than Intel currently is. I mean, even if you look at the new stuff Intel just dropped, you're talking about processors that have been gimped on PCIe lanes, whereas AMD's Threadripper processors are all going to have 64 PCIe lanes, and the highest one right now that Intel is showing has 44. And that's the highest one. If you get any of the lower ones, you're going to lose PCIe lanes, despite having the same X299 platform and probably having to spend more money on a board that has to have features included so it can support all these different types of processors. You're going to get much more right now, as far as we know. I mean, things could change, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, bang for buck, to do anything but consider an AMD, which is really...
I mean, I would disagree. I mean, if gaming is your sole function, you do virtually nothing else. You watch YouTube, you do some homework, maybe some Google searching, but 90+% of your time on your computer is gaming. In all honesty, the 7700K is probably the best overall option. I mean, the 1600, the R5 1600 is probably the best, but especially for high refresh gaming, if you have a 144 hertz monitor, you really can't buy anything but a 7700K, because even that's not fast enough. Even one of those running at 5+ gigahertz is not fast enough to run games consistently at 144 frames per second. So, there are reasons to still go with Intel, but it's mostly gaming, which is what, we generally talk about. Now, like I just said, the 1600 is still the better value for the vast majority of people, But the 7700K at $300 is definitely a better value than like the 1700 from AMD, in my opinion.
And I'm not saying you're wrong. I think what I said was, as far as value goes, yes, I think AMD is going to be your best option, and the 7700K can have its performance in gaming that does appear to be marginally better than AMD. But as far as that goes, I think the 7700K is living on borrowed time. You know, we're in an era now where we have DX12 starting to roll out. I mean, the first built from the ground up game, which was Sniper Elite 4 in DX12, you see AMD performing just as well in it as Intel is almost. And the idea here is that going forward, having a more core count is going to have a better effect on your minimum frames as well as your frame times. So I think overall, it's not that the 7700K isn't a good processor, because there's nothing to say it isn't. It is a great processor. But with the newer games coming out, having the higher core count is going to be more beneficial. So if you were to go with a higher core count AMD, given that you're going to spend less money, you will probably get more longevity out of it, which is where I was kind of going with that. It's not that Intel doesn't make a decent processor in the 7700K. It's just that I think it's living on borrowed time is my point. So that's just what I wanted to get out there. Right now, AMD really has their competition by the balls, and they can't let go. So I agree with you. They can't let go. They've got to continue to innovate, and I think it can only benefit us to do so.
I mean, you're clearly right. I mean, Intel obviously knows that higher core count is the future. Otherwise, they wouldn't have just magically crapped out an 18-core, 36-thread CPU for, you know, their HEDT platform. And Coffee Lake obviously is going to be, or supposed to be, you know, 6 cores and 12 threads. And I think the i5 is supposed to be 6 cores, 6 thread. So clearly they understand that that's where things going as well. So anybody who's thinking quad cores are going to be around forever, I mean, they're not. But if you're one of those people that literally do upgrade every single time a new processor comes out, you know, the 7700K is the fastest gaming CPU that's out right now. Buy that when it's no longer the fastest. Buy whatever that is. What I find very interesting is the fastest gaming CPU you can buy is only $300, $350. You know, I think about that every once in a while. I'm like, that's amazing. What does the fastest gaming GPU cost? You know, it's like, because there's a lot of people out there that are like, oh, $300 for a processor is a lot. It's like, no, it's not. It really isn't. I mean, you're spoiled at the $200 price point. I mean, the Athlon 64 days that I mentioned before, the Athlon FX CPUs, those were $1,000. And if you wanted the fastest gaming CPU, you had to spend $1,000 on a CPU. So I think, you know, so it's kind of good overall. I think the market's going to readjust. Obviously, higher core count's going to be the way. Console's been doing it for coming up on 4 years now. So, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so that's really all I've got. That was the big topic I wanted to talk about tonight. Is there anything you wanted to talk about, Chris? Something that we haven't
something that I was kind of thinking about, and I know a couple other people are starting to talk about it too, but the availability of AMD, not processors, but GPUs, has completely disappeared off the market. This
crypto miners, right? Crypto miners?
Yeah, this whole crypto mining thing is it's rearing its ugly head again. And honestly, this is what killed the R9 290 and 290X from completely destroying the GTX 700 series, because they just weren't available, because the crypto miners came out and they bought all of them, and actual gamers couldn't get their hands on them. And that really hurt AMD as far as like brand recognition, because nobody could get them. So they went with, you know, the NVIDIA counterparts. So, I mean, with Vega almost out, it looks like this is going to happen again. It's kind of strange timing if you think about it. You know, when AMD gets competitive again for the first time in, you know, 4 years. Supposedly competitive. We don't really know yet because they don't like to say anything at Computex. But, you know, it's just really bad timing. And that might also be part of the reason why they pushed back Vega. They might have saw this coming. So I don't know. I think it's just really shitty for anybody who wants to get an AMD card. Like if you want a 570 or a 580, you're pretty much just SOL. You can't buy them unless you want to pay scalper prices. I'm looking at getting some older GPUs to do some benchmarks and some videos for you guys. And yeah, getting like a 7970, they're going for like $300. on eBay.
Jesus, really?
Yeah. I saw 390Xs going for well over $400.
Wow.
You know, it's getting ridiculous. I actually got my hands on a RX 580 for a very brief period. I got it at like 180 bucks. And I flipped the thing like immediately. And I sold it for $250. So, and that was like right at the very beginning. I was like, well, I would like to have this for benchmarking and whatever, but time for profit, you know. And that's what a lot of people are going to do, and they're going to take advantage of the situation, and it's just going to, I think it's going to hurt AMD on the GPU side because they're not actually in the hands of gamers, so gamers are not going to be talking about them.
It is a shame. Unfortunately, I doubt AMD cares enough because they're selling the cards, whether it's to a gamer or a crypto miner. But, you know, I've also recently read a report, and I cannot remember where it was, where I read it. It might have been Tech Power Up, I don't know. About AMD possibly readying cards, NVIDIA as well, specifically for crypto mining. So it's possible that they might already have something up their sleeves that might address this issue as far as the availability of their cards, people being able to purchase them and utilize them for gaming and anything else, really. I mean, I know gaming, as you did in a recent video, is kind of going by the wayside as far as what's the most important thing. So we know that their deep learning or the machine learning and stuff is kind of taking over because it's a huge market. But to be perfectly honest, even if just looking at NVIDIA and the slide you had put up in that video, you talked about it's $1.2 billion they made off of their gaming gaming
in one quarter.
In one quarter. So that's not exactly a small amount of money. My point is, I don't think it's going away. It might become secondary to the machine learning, but I do think that they're not going to ignore gaming completely. I do think AMD will do everything they can to make the cards available, but you're right, it could very well damage any market share or mind share that they might have gained otherwise, because these crypto miners are going to take them up, and these people that might have considered getting an AMD can't get it. Well, then they're going to go with a NVIDIA product. Or if you're like me and a bunch of people I've seen on Reddit lately, you're just tired of waiting for Vega. You might have already jumped ship, so it might not be important to you. But if you are still holding out, if you still have just a thread of sanity left waiting for this, and you really think you're going to be able to turn it into, or be able to hold on just long enough for Vega to come out, give it that time and do your best to get a hold of it, you know, or do your best to spread the mind share, because AMD is doing everything it can to make your market competitive, just like with their CPU products. And with our help and with a little bit of luck, we might get better competition in the GPU market as well, and see the benefits there that we are now seeing.
Like I said, it's up to AMD to actually produce the things. Like I said, with their lack of information at Computex, I think they kind of shot themselves in the foot. Anybody waiting on Vega probably shouldn't, unless, and this is something that I didn't say in the video, maybe I did mention it real quick, but Vega would literally need to be 30% faster than the GP102 at this particular point. If it launches at the end of July, August, it needs to be on par with where Volta is going to be. I mean, and I just don't see that happening right now. I just don't see it being that fast. Now, it doesn't mean that it can't be, but because let's say it's not. Let's say it's relatively close, even 10% faster. You could literally just wait 4 or 5 more months and then get 40 to 50% faster than, you know, the 1080 Ti. So, I mean, we're kind of at that point where it's almost like wait for Volta makes more sense because of how large of a performance gain that's going to be over what's currently out there.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's no arguing with that. You've got a good point there. If you've waited this long, sure, wait another 4 or 5 months, but can you hold out that long? And who knows? I mean, we don't really know specifically when Volta's going to hit. At this point, we still don't know when freaking Vega's going to hit. We know it's soon, but they've been saying that for a while now. All we can talk about is that it looks like AMD is going to be trying to do to the GPU market what they're currently doing to the CPU market, and I'm hoping that they will come with the thunder and allow the GPU market that competition it so desperately needs.
Well, it all ties into the mind share that we were just talking about. You know, the lack of availability is going to hurt their mind share for the average consumers. And then, you know, the reason why I think AMD is going to be stronger against Intel and doing is actually going to do much better against Intel than anybody predicted is because Intel doesn't have that strong of a mind share. And it's actually Intel's fault. That's what happens when you only offer, in reality, you tell people 15% performance gains every year, but in reality it's closer to 3 to 5%. So you're not actually offering a superior product. Maybe it's a little bit more power efficient, maybe it clocked a little bit higher, but then you say we're not going to use solder anymore, so your CPUs overheat, so you shouldn't overclock your overclockable CPUs. You know, Intel has kind of done everything that they could to hurt their own mind share. They stopped innovating. They stopped delivering compelling products. And AMD is just saying, hey, look, we're going to give you everything that we possibly can. Oh, by the way, we also solder, you know, our chips together here so you get that better heat transfer and cooler CPUs because, you know, we'll take the extra 5% defects or whatever it is. And, you know, they're going out of their way to deliver what people really want, and Intel just kind of doesn't care. Now, NVIDIA is a whole nother beast. Every 18 months, NVIDIA delivers a 40 to 50% performance increase per, you know, segment, you know, like an X70 GPU versus the previous one's about 30 to 50% faster. The X80, same thing. You know, so each performance segment is generally a good chunk faster, and like I said, usually between 30 and 50% every year and a half. So, you know, that's the reason why NVIDIA's mindshare is so good, because they keep delivering almost like on a perfect TikTok that Intel just can't do anymore.
There's really not much to talk about there. You're right. NVIDIA definitely has stronger mind share, but and I think people have reluctantly drank the Intel Kool-Aid because they haven't had any competition. But it isn't easy to understand. It isn't hard to understand that Intel has been offering a subpar product year after year. Even somebody like me, who's not the most technical person, I can see that the small percentage gains year after year aren't necessarily worth it. I sat on my i7-940 for how long? 7 years. You know, I just recently grabbed the 6700K last year because I couldn't stand it any longer. But yeah, I hear you. And all we can do is hope, you know, that like I said, I keep saying, all we can do is hope that AMD makes a dent, because we desperately need it in the GPU market, maybe even more than we need it in the CPU market.
Like I said, the fastest gaming CPU you can buy from Intel, of all companies, Intel, you know, people that love the money, still only $350. You know, so like I said, to me that's amusing. And that's mostly because developers do base around that particular series processor, and because quad cores have been mainstream forever. But, you know, when you really just sit down and think about it and go, of everything in the world, you know, Intel has had the market, and they really didn't bump everybody up to the $1,000 processors. You know, it's not mandatory to run your games at 60 or 100 frames per second. You know, $300 and you're good to go. And for most people, the i5 was actually adequate, and usually that'll handle 60 no problem. So, yeah, so it's just kind of interesting. With NVIDIA, it's another animal. You want the best, well, you're buying a $1,200 GPU. If you want to wait, you know, halfway through the GPU life cycle, you can get that same performance for half the price, but, you know, you're only going to get half the distance out of it. So yeah, I agree. The GPU market does need the competition more than the CPU market overall to help bring overall costs down and, you know, help save people some more money.
Yes, it does. All right, guys, that's all I've got for tonight. Chris, you have anything you want to add?
No, I think that kind of covered all the topics that you and I haven't discussed yet on the channel that, you know, have been brought up here recently.
All right. Well, listen, you guys have a good night. Thanks for watching. If you like what we're doing, feel free to hit that like button. Leave us something in the comments for us. Let us know what you like, dislike, that kind of thing. Feel free to subscribe if you really like our videos and the information we're giving out. And you could also hit us up on Patreon and become a patron if you want to help us that way as well. But for me, you guys have a good night. I'll see you in the next video.
Catch you guys in the next video.